safe. You are tuned to the emergency station.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special broadcast of the GARF Network. I am Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight we're having a very special celebration of the 25th anniversary of Tales from the Hood. It's hard to believe it's been 25 years already, but we're going to have a couple of special guests on tonight to discuss the film very shortly. But before we get into that, right here at the top, we need to cover a little bit of GARF news. Real quick, thanks for everybody for attending, and GARF's extremely pleased to be partnering tonight with the University of Pittsburgh Honors College, and thank you so much, everybody, for attending.
Yeah, thank you to Dean Audrey Murrell and Rusty Cundieff and all the special guests who are going to attend throughout the evening on behalf of the George A. Romero Foundation and the GARF Network.
And this event is also part of our annual Romero Lives celebration, where we honor George and honor luminaries.
And when you folks are done here tonight, please do us a favor, head over to thegarf.org and see what we have working on coming up now during Romero Lives and in the future, and to learn more about the foundation and what our message is.
And real quick, before we get too far along, we actually are upcoming on the 24th. We have a very special Tales from the Dark Side event coming up. We're going to have John Harrison on board. Can't wait to speak with him. And we also have some other guests planned to arrive. Harry Miller, for one. And really looking forward to that. So join us on the 24th.
In addition, the GARF has actually launched a Patreon at patreon.com/thegarfofficial, and our first subscriber content will be launched immediately after the Romero Lives event in October. So look out in early November. Please subscribe. It helps the foundation achieve its goals and keeps the lights on. We would really appreciate the support.
And tonight we're simulcasting on our Facebook page, the GARF Facebook page, as well as Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. So tonight we're gonna try and get the links into the chat so that you can follow us on your social platform of choice.
And don't forget, tonight at 9 o'clock, premiering on Sci-Fi, Tales from the Hood 3 makes its U.S. broadcast debut. So when you're done here tonight, head over and watch Tales from the Hood 3 with Rusty Cundieff and see what we've been talking about tonight. And with that being said, I'd like to turn the show over to Dean Audrey Murrell for our special guest tonight.
Hey, Audrey.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's so great to be partnering with George A. Romero Foundation on this amazing event. And it's just my honor to welcome Rusty Cundieff, who was born and raised in Pittsburgh, right in the same neighborhood where I live to this day. And to wish him happy anniversary for the Tales from the Hood 1, the iconic film that still remains relevant and powerful to this day. And also congratulations on the third installation. You know Rusty from his writer, acting, directing talents, not only from Tales from the Hood, but also from the Dave Chappelle show. He's a father with two adorable children, and has just had been a tremendous impact in this industry. And so I'm really thrilled to welcome him and to wish him a happy 25th anniversary.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
I have three kids. If you only say two, someone's going to get upset.
Uh-oh. I don't want to get you in trouble tonight. Let me not start off bad.
Yeah. She didn't say which two.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say 4 and see if you would adopt me. If I say 4, would you adopt me if I corrected that? And just
oh, sure. Especially since you're an adult and I don't have to pay for it. So
right. Well, I was going to say, congratulations on the 25th anniversary. I watched the film when I was 5 years old, but since you and I were born in the exact same year, I already told you that I can't get away with that. So, what does it feel like? 25 years from ago, you premiered Tales 1. What do you think?
I'm shocked that it's 25 years. That's how it feels. It's like I can't remember. My wife and I were talking about something last night, and you don't see yourself get old. So when things like this happen, it reminds you that yes, you're getting older.
But you had to start thinking about the vignettes and things that were in one, and how 25 years later they're absolutely relevant to the struggles we're going on today. What do you think?
Well, that is the more depressing part of a 25th anniversary of Tales from the Hood, that literally all of the stories are newsworthy and very current feeling with what we're going through today. So it's I'm grateful that we've had fans for all these years, and that the film has constantly kind of been in people's head. It is, somewhat depressing might be the wrong word, but a little sad that we're still dealing with these same issues.
Right. But I think, you might think about it that you were pushing the envelope and bringing some of these issues onto the screen in the way you did 25 years ago. And so it might just be the case that 25 years ago, we were afraid to talk about issues of race and violence and brutality and domestic violence. And now 25 years later, they're much more in the everyday conscious, maybe because of social media. So, you didn't have all that 25 years ago, and you were still pushing the envelope.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is interesting to see the progress that has been made now versus, I guess, 25 years ago. I mean, when we had test screenings for the film, we test screened it here in Los Angeles. We test screened it in New York. And, we generally would they would pull in a mixed audience. And I know our white audience at the time, a majority of them, and especially on the older side, really had big issues, particularly with the first episode with the cops and how the cops were portrayed. And so to see today that there are all sorts of people that have marched alongside Black Lives Matter and are, actively trying to make changes that will affect the Black community, the Hispanic community, brown people, LGBTQ people. It's that's the benefit of today versus then. But yeah, the content of the film at the time definitely got some pushback from some areas, and it still gets pushback from some fans of horror that are more interested in the horror than they are in the social commentary, and don't really appreciate the social commentary quite as much.
You've done multiple types of film genre, and tonight we're focused, because of the anniversary, a lot on horror. Was it the choice of horror as the genre first, and then the content of what you wanted to push, or did you want to push this content and when you did Tales 1, you thought horror has some unique characteristics that allow me to raise these issues in a way that are going to be really powerful?
For me, the content the messages were always important. Pretty much everything that I write on my own has some sort of commentary in it. And so when we began working on Tales from the Hood, the first one, I had already written a script, a short one-act for the theater called The Black Horror Show, in quotes, Blackanthropy, which if horror fans know that lycanthropy is the disease of being a werewolf. So Blackanthropy, in that case, was the disease of being black. And we performed that a few times here around Los Angeles and a few other places. And then when Darren Scott, who is my co-writer on the first film and a producer on the first film, said, let's do a horror film. Let's do a horror anthology. I don't know why he wanted to do a horror anthology. Well, he's a big horror fan. And I'm a horror fan, but not as much as he is, probably. And so when he came to me with that, I said, I'm interested in it, but it has to have some kind of relevance to it. I don't just want to do scares for the sake of scares. And he was on board with that. And that was kind of the genesis of how we how we began writing the stories for the first tales. And then it was a matter of just looking at the things that were out there, kind of the social ills that were happening in our world. And so it was really easy to pick out, some very specific things.
So we're going to talk horror tonight, and we're going to talk Tales 1, 2, and then give people a little bit of peek at Tales 3. And I have some really deep academic questions to ask you throughout the evening. And then we're going to throw some jokes in too to keep everybody going. What do you think? How does it sound for an agenda?
That sounds fantastic. Let's do it.
All right. So maybe we should start off with, we're going to show a couple of clips, not all from 1 and 2 and 3, because that would be way past my bedtime. But as the scenes from one are playing, I just have some questions for us to chat about, and then we'll also invite the audience to participate and give you some questions too. So let's talk about this first scene. This is the scene with Clarence Williams III, who is extremely scary. Let me just put that out there throughout the film, when he turns into the devil and the kids are in the coffin. So, which really, one of the things that about your work is that you think you're going down one direction and then you take a hard left into some place that no one expects that they're gonna do. So, there was an interview that someone did that said, within horror, you're always dealing with some version of evil or darkness, right? And so in this scene, that whole notion about violence, especially Black on Black violence, and it from a dark side, that was really risky back 25 years ago. Talk to me about this idea about evil and oddness, and what horror allows you to do to be able to put that in the context of things like race and racism and other social issues.
Well, okay. So, first off, I guess you could say that horror, our day-to-day lives have horrific things that happen.
That's true.
And horror is the place to easily deal with some of those day-to-day things. So here in this scene, we have this is at the end of the crazy case scene with the kids who've come to Clarence's house for these drugs, to the funeral home for these drugs. And I was concerned, I know Darren was too, about inner city gang violence, and particularly Black kids killing Black kids. And that's where this all kind of came from. But as you look at horror overall, and I think your broader question was, how does horror manifest itself, or why does it work so well dealing with social issues? It allows you to look at them through a lens that isn't actually of the moment, even though I would Tales from the Hood is a little more real than maybe some horror is, because we're dealing with actual things that exist in society.
Right.
This, I'm just enjoying this right now because this.
I know. I told you he's majorly scary. Let me tell you.
This scene right here, where Clarence is about to turn into the devil. We showed this to some of the producers who came by the set. We had one of the early avids. And they watched this. Now, the tongue wasn't there yet. But as they were watching this, they said, "Is Clarence morphing?" And he hadn't morphed at all yet. But it was just, the performance was so incredible that they thought he was morphing. That's just a shout out to a brilliant actor right there. But yeah, horror films, sci-fi films are uniquely able to take on things that happen in our world that can be horrific: murder, violence, sexual abuse, racial problems. These are all horrific things. And they can look at them and they can dissect them, or they can present them in a way that maybe you haven't seen before, and that hopefully gives you a different view or a different understanding of what they are and how they're affecting society.
And I think in a way that, horror allows you to suspend reality a little bit. That was so powerful in that first clip, that it was sort of not the current reality, but a future reality. And so you're in the present, but also in this horrific present and also in this horrific future simultaneously. That freedom is probably something that horror also gives you, both as a writer and a director, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're outside of what reality is, though. As I said, I think oftentimes in Tales from the Hood, and maybe some other films too, but definitely in Tales, we touch on reality pretty closely. The politicians that we have, the cops that we have, they're directly linked to. So it's different than watching The Babadook or something like that, where this is a created thing. You're not going to run into it on the street. You're not going to deal with these things in your own personal life. But what we try to do with Tales, and what I think the horror / sci-fi genre allows you to do, is play around with very real, horrific issues. And that's something that I think is unique to horror and sci-fi. You can do it in drama, and you can also do it, obviously, in comedy. I directed Chappelle Show. My first film was Fear of a Black Hat. Those also have messages in them, and it's done through comedy. And it's another way of stepping outside of what the reality is, hopefully just enough that people can kind of digest what you're giving to them without it being a sermon. Though some people feel
I don't know.
it is a sermon.
But do you get in more? I mean, you wrote for Chappelle. Do you get in more trouble in comedy when you try to push those controversial issues than maybe you would in horror, or is it equally risky, particularly as a writer and a director?
Okay, yeah. Just to be sure, I directed Chappelle. Didn't write, though. I gave Dave some things that he did do. But yeah, to your point, I would say it's less about it being comedy versus horror and sci-fi, and a little bit more about the fact that when you're writing a script for a TV show or a film, you're creating characters, and those characters can behave in a way that is divorced from you as a writer, a director, and even a performer. If I'm playing a racist, if I'm playing a serial killer, it's not me. From the comedy side, from the stand-up side, when you come out on stage and you say something, it's connected to you. This is, considered to be your thought process. And you're not you're not a character. I mean, unless you're doing Pee Wee Herman or something like that. But people don't look at Dave Chappelle as a character. They don't look at, name a comedian. They're not characters. Right. It's their on-stage persona, but you assume that it's what they think. So that's a bit more, those waters are a little bit choppier to navigate. But as far as writing something, you do have the ability to say, okay, well, this is not me. I'll give you an example. Years ago when I did not Tales from the Hood, I did Fear of a Black Hat. It had an anniversary, and I went to a screening of it in Chicago at the Gene Siskel Theater. I don't watch my movies over and over. In fact, once I'm done with them, you're gone. I'm gone. People quote lines to me, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? There's your movie.
Oh, wait, let me take those out of my questions now.
Okay, well, I'll tell you about it. But so I'm watching this movie at the Gene Siskel Theater, like years away from when it was done. And I realized that there, I think, are one or two instances where Ice Cold, as a rapper, says the word faggot. And it's in one of the raps, and I think it might show up someplace else. And I was shocked to hear it. And what I realized though watching it is like, okay, that's Ice Cold. That's not Rusty Cundieff, and that is what rappers would have said at that period in time. Now, were I to go on stage as a stand-up and say that, it would, and I used to do stand-up comedy, it would be a much more difficult thread to kind of push through the material.
So we got another clip that we want to see, but there's somebody in the green room that I want to bring in who wants to holler at you and wish you a happy anniversary. So why don't we bring her forward? Can we do that? All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello, Matt.
Thank you for joining us.
And Rusty. Okay, why didn't anyone comment on how fly his man cave is? I saw a little niglet back there.
Yeah, Nicholas over there. He's there.
I have to give Trina kudos. Did she allow you to decorate this? Trina's his wife, World. I want to know if she did this or you did this. This is incredible.
She has nothing to do with this.
How did I know that? How did I know this was all you? The Lolita poster, the globe in the back, the disco ball. I love it. And the little niglet. Did you turn the niglet into a lampshade, or is he just resting?
No, he's just standing there. Lampshade.
He just posted up.
He's chilling.
I love it.
He's chilling.
Everyone, please say hello to our niglet. Thank you, Miss Audrey. Thank you for inviting me. I'm
so thrilled you could be here.
To everything that you guys have to say. And one thing I wanted to comment on was that prior to Rusty, Rusty and I did a horror documentary together for I think one of the horror history of horror. Yeah. So prior to Rusty, I perceived that Black horror was piggybacking on the white horror of the day. So we had the Black, we had the Black Frankenstein. We had the Black this, the Black of the creature of the lagoon.
We had Blackula, right? We had right.
When Rusty came along, he changed the game in a way that George Romero, which is so apropos that the foundation is involved, because George gave a commentary on zombies and the nature of society based on, how we are a zombie culture that is, and I kind of looked at ourselves as being the zombies as people of color. So it was beautiful that a man of color starred in his film, whereas Rusty tackled the Black experience, the Black diaspora, and he showed the world that we are experiencing horror on a day-to-day basis, just existing. So since Rusty, that's all the horror that you see. Every time I see a Black woman starring in a horror film, we're not using our imaginations and bringing us, spookies. We're getting beat up. I can name 3, Black women who have starred in horror films, and all of them are imitating Rusty, his showing us that there is a necessity to stop killing our women all around the board. So every horror film that a Black woman is in is just imitating what Rusty did in Tales from the Hood. That was really true in your scene, right? In the vignette that you were in, that was so next level, right? In terms of talking, right? We as Black people experience on a day-to-day basis is horror. Period. There's no imitating, no making up for it. And Rusty exposed that in a way that changed the horror culture in Black films. We're no longer trying to give you the Black Yalas or the Black this, the Black. We're giving you our experience as a culture and how we're dealing with being in a society that makes us the boogie monster. When we're just not that, but we're getting the backlash of the creature from the Black Lagoon. All of these horror films were designed to, make us feel less than. And Rusty turned it around and he made the world aware of the horror that exists within our experience.
And I think particularly in your scene, I think we have a clip of it coming up to sort of address the issue of domestic violence against Black women back 25 years ago. Just absolutely as wrong, right?
Yes, it was okay. Like she just got her butt beat. Like my mom, my grandma, my grandma. It was like, you were blessed if you were in a relationship and your man didn't lay hands on you. Like that was, you were a blessed woman, spoiled. Oh, he just spoils you, you know? So Rusty putting a light on that, it helps the women of tomorrow and now. And, you know, I haven't had to experience that, but I am a child of a woman who did. And that's why I believe I didn't. You know, my mother will tell you, if she was here, you know, she's the age of your grandmother. She had me later in life, which is a blessing. And she will tell you that she was never with a man that didn't lay hands on her. Wow. You know, and I think it was just, Rusty began something that needed to be spoken of in across the board, not just to Black women, but women, period. White women, Asian women, Indian women. You know, it's okay. Oh, she got a black eye, the cops come out. Oh, you know, that was then. You know, the abuse that we were suffering was also, you know, I love OJ, but let's be honest, the cops did give him a hand in whooping her ass. Now, that doesn't mean he killed her, but they did say, okay, you can whoop her ass today. Be good. Don't whoop her ass no more. You know, so that changed. And all of that happened around the same time. Tales from the Hood, the OJ trial, brought awareness to something that all of our mothers or our aunties, don't lie, all of us sitting here know a woman. And
it didn't talk about it, right? We just didn't talk about it. Who knew that?
As a little girl, but telling my aunties, he beat my mama ass. And they were like, I got the worst butt beating I've ever gotten in my entire life for talking about it.
And then who would have thought, this was before we even talked about
that need to be said. I bet you
we talked about
shut it down.
Men being feminists, right?
Okay. She shut it down. Yes.
Shut it down.
I have to applaud Rusty for tackling things so realistically. You know, changing the game. You don't get the accolades you should because it's only happening in the Black community. You know, you change the way that Black people personify or show. We show our horror. You know, we show the horror. If you just take a look at all the Black horror, it's about art. Even we can tell that Jordan has been touched by you. Even his horror, even though it's surreal as it is, it's talking about the experience and the fears that we have as a people trying to integrate into a society that really doesn't want us beyond what they signed up for. You know, they didn't sign up for, hey, look here, it was okay for you to build our stuff, but we didn't sign up for you to kind of matriculate into the society. That wasn't the plan. So changing people's minds is what a good filmmaker does. And the only way to change your mind is to show you that your mind is screwed up. You don't know that you're looking at things wrong. Someone shows you that you are. And I think Rusty should get all of that credit, like a lot of those French filmmakers got for changing the game. You know, and Rusty's the man. That's it.
Hey, Paula, we just got word that Brandon Hammond's in the audience.
Who's
watching?
Audience?
Yeah, Brandon's in the audience. Who played your son in Tales
Oh my
One?
gosh, my baby! Oh, now Rusty gave that baby. I mean, that baby that's one of the most talented children, one of the most talented actors I've ever worked with in my entire life. Like, I'm still searching for one other baby. I worked with the young lady Stormy, who played in A Wrinkle in Time. She's as special, but those are people that God put on this earth. Like Shirley, those are Shirley Temples. Those are blessings that we have to appreciate, and you know, we have to uplift our children actors and make sure that they get their shot for life because they deserve it.
They do.
Paul was talking about Storm Reed. The Wrinkle in Time. Storm was actually, I think I put her in her first film, which we actually did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, called Whitewater, which is
Yes,
real interesting show.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah.
About getting out of the water fountain.
Yeah, about the water fountain.
Yes, that was so good because I always wondered, why didn't we clean the water fountains? I mean, okay, why they got to be nasty? I mean, I never understood. Okay, we got to drink out these water fountains, but why we just don't get some Lysol, a little bit?
Well, okay, let's be clear. What the water fountain was, Whitewater is a story about two young kids who go into a town. It's based on a true story. A couple of students of mine that were in a writing class that wrote a script, and I helped them get it produced and then directed it, about a young black kid in the South and a young white kid that go into town, a little one street town in Opelika, Alabama. And they both get off the bus on a hot summer day, and they have to run to the water fountains. They run to a fountain. The white kid goes to the whites only fountain. The colored kid goes to the colored fountain. And the little colored boy looks over and sees this white kid drinking this water that looks like it must be from a mountain spring someplace in Alaska, just cool and refreshing. And he's got this stale water. And he decides, as a 7-year-old African-American kid in 1958, I think, that he's going to drink from the whites only fountain at some point. And that's what the story is about. It's got a very Forrest Gump kind of vibe, and has some horror in it later on, because even though we tried to give it a very light air, and it is one of the few films you'll see about that period in time that has some laughs in it, we also wanted to make sure that the reality of what this child would be facing drinking from a whites only fountain in the South at that time would be shown. So it's horror, not horror like this. There's nothing supernatural about it. It's just the horror that people do.
Now, Rusty, when we were prepping and having conversations about this event, we talked about the vignettes that Paula was in and some of the audience feedback and some of your concerns about, this whole issue. Why don't you share that and get some reactions from Paula about this as well?
Paula would not have been there for this. So, as I said, we did a lot of test screenings, and this digs a little deep, but I'll get into it. Excuse me. She gets beat very badly by David Alan Grier's character in the film. And our first cut of the film, my preferred cut of the film, the beating goes on much longer than it does in what was released. And that was something that we had to deal with to get an R from the MPAA. Now, why that is interesting to me is this. There was a moment in time when Schindler's List came out, and it was played at a high school in Northern California, somewhere in the Bay, I believe. And a lot of articles were written on it that the black students that watched Schindler's List were laughing at the film, and how terrible they were to laugh at something so outrageous and so bad. Now, cut back to Tales from the Hood and this beating that Paula's character takes here, and why I wanted it to be so long. So when we showed the long version, and we had a lot of young high school African-American students in the audience, when her character first starts getting beat by David Alan Grier, they started laughing. And as the film went on, that laughter died down, and you could see tears, you could feel this pain. And the purpose of me saying this is that even with the Schindler's List thing, you're dealing with an audience of young people who have seen this in their life. And if they haven't seen it, they know someone who's dealt with it. And what they are doing as young people is trying to push away that pain. They don't want to deal with it. They're going to laugh at it. They're going to be, oh, that's crazy. Oh, look at that. They don't want to feel that pain. And that's the same thing that happened to these kids watching Schindler's List. They're not trying to deal with that. Black Americans. And hey, look, poor people in this country deal with so much stuff. which is why they are more likely to go to a comedy than they are to go to a drama. They're not trying to relive what they go through on a day-to-day. So in this film, I wanted this to be longer so people could actually feel this pain and get in touch with what was happening, so that it wasn't just a laughter moment that they could easily brush off as, oh, look, you know, that bee got her butt whooped, which is where they were going with it. And then,
well, that and the resolution, right? So how you resolve that with what the young son does in there was also, you know, right on the edge of, you know, of sort of redemption versus retaliation, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's Brandon. He did such a fantastic job. I hope they sent you a link so you can join in, Brandon. I think they did. Anyway, you know, I was concerned. I mean, when this happened, when that moment right there, when David Allen Greer's hand goes back, at the same screening that I'm talking about, where these kids started to cry, the entire audience stood up and gave it a standing ovation. They were clapping through this entire ending.
Oh, wow.
Afterwards, there were a couple of women there that came up to me who worked at a women's shelter. And I was really concerned because I was like, you know, they said, well, we really like this. And I said, well, you work at this women's shelter. Is this even a value? Because no one can do this in real life. You can't get rid of your real life villain this way. And they said, you know what? This is actually something that would be very cathartic for women and children that have gone through this. So it does serve a purpose, which made me feel, you know, a lot better. Because I didn't want to put something out there that presented a solution to something that was impossible. I mean, it is impossible, but the fact that they said that it was something that could be healing for them to see was, you know, it made me feel good.
It is. Paula, what do you think about that?
I think that is so beautiful. Like the whole concept of drawing your pain is something that is practiced in therapy. Not that I've ever experienced it myself. I could, I'm sure, use a little bit. But the whole, I have done my paint by numbers, Jesus. I must admit it came out very nice. But the point I'm making is, yes, the whole drawing your pain is something that's practiced in therapy. And then the act of destroying it. It's even a religious thing sometimes. I think I've seen some voodoo rituals where you do draw your pain and then burn it. You know, there are some, all of this, once again, on YouTube. But yes, these are definitely things that have been practiced throughout history. What you did and naming the monster and then destroying it. You know, a lot of times, like Voldemort, we're afraid to say his name, but until you name the monster, you can't destroy it. So I think I agree. I think that was a beautiful thing that people incorporated that. It's smart.
Well, and that also pushes power dynamics, right? So power of men over women, power because of race, power because of physical, right? And so that horror genre allows you to be able to disrupt those power dynamics in a way that, you know, I could see people standing up and cheering.
Yes. And superstition. We are superstitious people. You know, our boy wrote a song about it. Very superstitious. You want to hear it go, but we are superstitious. Like, you know, those are ancient superstitions. You know, I still put my bills in the freezer to make sure that the collectors, I freeze the debt. You know, those are superstitions that we have carried with us from Africa, of naming the monster and then destroying it. And those are things that do work on a metaphysical level as well.
Oh, I'm going to add another guest to this. I hear Darren Scott joined us in the green room. So
Darren,
we're just having a party.
What up, girlfriend?
Hey, Dean.
Welcome.
Hey there.
How's it going?
Good.
We are having a 25th year anniversary party here.
Wow.
Right on.
Let's party. Who brought the booze?
I got the Perrier.
They'll have to be
I have my own supply at home, so.
Lucky you.
So what do you think 25 years ago? What do you think?
Can't believe that much time has passed. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
But what's even more incredible is that the film is just as or more relevant now than when we made it 25 years ago. You basically could put the movie out now, change all the dates on it, the copyright date and all that stuff, and put it out now. And unless people were aware of the age of the actors, or, you know, well, wait a second, it would come across as a modern film.
So give me a story about one of the conversations you and Rusty had in pulling this together that was something that maybe you struggled with, or you second or third guessed with, or you said, nope, man, we got to go out there. We've got to push this envelope, because we were talking about that with the scenes that Paula was in, and how much they pulled the cover back on issues of abuse, particularly for women of color, that really hadn't been done in film before.
Sure. Well, I think Rusty's use of the hanging, lynched bodies and bodies burning on a pyre in the Crazy K episode. I'm pretty sure that the lion's share of people who saw the movie over the years had never seen pictures like that. They certainly hadn't seen those pictures in 1995, because they weren't put on in front of them. They weren't, you know. So I think that was one of the most envelope pushing things that we did, was featuring those very shocking and sad photos.
Yeah, that was especially true. There was a scene with the Death by the Dolls, right? Remember that from that? When I remember when I first saw that, I was like, no, they didn't do that. Like I was like, ooh, somebody's getting ready to get in trouble. I mean, that was even today, that, you know, engenders a certain visceral response. It's sort of, you're torn between going, yes, this is justice, to no, I shouldn't be cheering for that. What do you think about that?
I'm on the this is justice side all the way. I don't have any sympathy for the character whatsoever. He had it coming.
Hey, Darin, can Darin hear me?
Yeah.
What political ad did we take this from? I always forget that guy. Was it Jesse Helms?
Yeah, no, it was Jesse Helms.
It was that political ad where he acted like he was balling up that piece of paper.
I'm telling you, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. It was a Jesse Helms ad. He was running against it was Harold Grimes, or I'm getting his opponent's name mixed up. But he was running against a black candidate in North Carolina. And, you know, Helms is one of the most notorious racists in the history of the Senate. So he had this ad where...
Oh, by the way, that's my mama.
Yes, that's my
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Darin. I just want to point out that's my mom. She played the voodoo lady.
Yeah, awesome.
They were just showing the clip, so I just wanted to point that out. All right.
So anyway, the narrator comes on. You just see these white hands, a desk, and a letter. And it's obviously a rejection letter. You didn't get the job. And it's like, you were qualified for that job. You earned that job. You should have got that job. But they gave it to. We don't have to tell you who they gave it to.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, Audrey, you were talking about this earlier, is a real example of, how we just pulled things from what was real in the world. We actually, shot of David Duke, not David Duke, of Duke Metzger in our movie, crumbling up the piece of paper, is the exact shot from the Jesse Helms political ad at that year. And of course, Duke Metzger, Tom Metzger, David Duke, we were just pulled the names and made it one person.
Yeah.
So two insane racist, one a Klansman, and Tom Metzger was a Klansman, but he's a racist person out here in California. Lived just over the bridge in Glendale.
People forget.
Yeah, but you know that horror, right? That disrupts that, right? I mean, that you took something that was real and you put it within horror, and then all of a sudden you got a completely different scenario, right? Going. I mean, that's got to give a lot of freedom for a director and an actor and a writer, don't you think, Darren? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everybody was participating. Corbin was very inspired by the part. Now we just rolled with it.
Corbin. Let me say something about Corbin. Corbin was fantastic, and the funniest thing to me about his performance, and this we had talked about comedy earlier, Audrey, and comedy versus horror and drama and all that sort of stuff. Okay, we have Corbin Burnson playing a racist governor in this episode. In an earlier episode, we had Wings Hauser playing a racist cop. Years after this happened, Corbin came up to me at something and said, "Rusty, I got to thank you." And I said, and I hadn't seen him for years. I'm like, "For what?" He's like, "For all the huge black fan base I got from Tales from the Hood." I'm like,
whoa.
So because Corbin somehow, with his "you little nigglets," managed to garner a laugh.
He was hilarious, you know.
People enjoyed him, and black people really liked him. On the flip side,
I have to interject as an actor.
Wait 1 second, Paula. Let me finish this point.
I don't know. Okay.
Let me finish this point. I'm just telling you that Corbin's got a big fan base of black people that like him.
I don't know, baby.
On the flip side, Wings Hauser, who played an evil cop and was not funny at all, I can remember being on the set and crew members coming up to me, and I imagine they might have came up to Darin, but I know they came up to me and they were like, "He really believes that. He's a racist jerk." And I'm like, "He's an actor.
Really?
If he believed it, he wouldn't be doing this movie. Right. He's just a really good actor." But
I like your point. I do appreciate your point, because I have played funny hoochies. But you know, the thing about that is then it becomes hard for people to allow me to do other things. But I do other things, and maybe that is because she's a funny hoochie. But no, I'm looking at Corbin, and I have talked about it with him, and I have talked about it with, you know, black people on a whole, and they do look at him like I look at, you know, Mr. Danny Glover. I love him to death, but I still can't look at him without thinking about Mr. And I met Danny Glover once, and I was like, "Ooh, I can't stand him." I think we went to high school together, and I went up to him and I was like, "Didn't we go to high school together?" And he was like, "No, I'm Danny Glover." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" But it just hit me that I hated him just off top. I didn't even know why I hated him, but it was because of Mr. But he wasn't funny, you know. So that's why I appreciate the point.
Well, it does hit people different ways, right? It hits people different ways. I think, Darren, you mentioned the crazy case segment. I think we have a clip from that that we can show. But go ahead while they're pulling that up.
So I do as an actor, I do know that you can get stereotyped based on giving a great performance. And both of them gave phenomenal performances. Oh,
now, this is the crazy case section. There's Rosalind, who, oh my God, she just did a phenomenal performance.
She's wonderful.
Sadly, Lamont Bentley, who played Crazy K, is not with us anymore.
Yeah.
But I will say this. this is a sidebar. When he was alive, obviously when he was alive, he came up to me and he said, "Rusty, I got to thank you. Actors come up and they thank you for different things. It's interesting." And I'm like, "What's up, Lamont?" He's like, what's the polite way to say this? I got so many hookups with various women because you put me on that thing in that little bikini.
Oh, Lamont, yeah.
Miss Audrey, don't act like me. And you was like, oh. And I said, beside myself, I said, oh, Lord, the good die young. You know, like just somebody, auntie and grandma. But yes.
I do remember some comments and exclamations about Lamont's clothing while we were shooting.
Right.
But did you all get backlash from? Did you get backlash from the Black community about sort of the equating of Black on Black violence with the lynchings? Did you get any negative blowback?
No, we got none. In fact, what and I don't know if Darin's heard any of this. I know I've told him. I don't know if anyone's come up to him and said it specifically, but I've had more than a few young men, they're older now, come up to me and say they stopped gangbanging because of this segment here.
Wow.
Many.
That's very powerful.
Even if it turned one life away from a dark path, as an artist, you got to take great satisfaction in that.
Yeah, no Black person had any problem with this at all. And
now,
I was talking about the white viewers that we had that had a problem with the cop episode. No white person had a problem with this because it was dealing with Black people doing Black things.
Oh yeah, they love this.
Like,
when we were studying this, I didn't realize until we started doing the research on this, and particularly with George Romero's film, that final scene in Night of the Living Dead actually is, sort of a connection to lynching when the only Black
That's what I was
character.
saying. Yes, that's what I was trying to say, Miss Audrey. That was the comparison I was making with the zombies. Yes.
Did you all think about that in sort of how you put this together? Was that an influence point at all?
The movie Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it wasn't. I can't speak for Darin, but it wasn't for me.
I've seen many zombie movies in my day. I am an actual horror fan, so probably pieces were coming from a lot of places. But there was no thought of that particular one.
Yeah, but I guess you can say minds for social justice think alike. So
there you go.
that
is true.
George Romero, who actually was a trailblazer in terms of how we can look at Black characters on screen.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, not always the character that's running scared or the first one that gets killed, right? That's the Forrest Gump thing. The black character is the first one to get killed or shot or exit, right? And that wasn't the case in Romero's Night of the Living Dead.
No, and Dwayne Jones did a tremendous job acting the part. I mean, he was strong, obviously the smartest one there, the bravest one there, and a leader. And he's being pitted against a guy who, the only thing this guy doesn't do is use racial slurs, because it was obvious in the character of the other husband that the Black character's race is a big factor to him.
Right.
The Romero never just totally went there. He just let it play out, and you can see the dynamics of this guy, especially after Dwayne punched him.
Absolutely. Oh, I hear Brandon's in the green room. Let's see if we can bring him in so we can.
Man.
Man. Got a little man beard.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay, who's this NFL player they got?
Hey, Paula. Hey,
Where's
Rusty.
Brandon?
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, Matt. I just met Matt like 10 minutes ago.
That's the man, man.
Glad you made it, sir.
No, thank you guys for inviting me. This is awesome. Thank you, Rusty,
Great
for
to see
inviting
you,
me.
man.
Nice,
Oh,
nice
yeah,
to meet you,
man.
Brandon.
Absolutely.
Too.
It is.
Nice to meet you guys. This is awesome what you guys are doing.
So you got
25 years, right?
20 is right. I was 10, I believe, when I did
You were
it.
10?
11.
Oh.
I'm 36. I'm 36 now.
Whoa,
Right. I got salt and pepper in my beard. And,
you gotta be it.
right. And it's funny because I reconnected with Paula like a few months ago. At a couple things. She was doing a TV show, and then she also did Insecure, and I saw her at the premiere of that.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's been decades since I've talked to Rusty.
Yeah, man. I mean, the last time I saw Brandon, we were supposed to be doing something up in
Toronto,
Canada.
Canada, yep.
Yeah, Vancouver.
Yep.
And he got sick,
Yep.
and he had to drop out. It was terrible because I had
Yep.
cast him in this thing.
Uh,
It was a Disney thing.
It was
And I had done opposite casting
Yep.
where the kid that would normally be a blonde, blue-eyed kid was Brandon,
nice.
and the other kid was white
Right.
kid. And then Brandon got sick,
Yep.
and they gave me a blonde, blue-eyed kid, so I ended up with just a traditional old Disney movie.
See, Rusty
Oh,
was
which one was it?
it was a spin and
It was called, Spin and Marty's Excellent Adventures.
Oh, no.
Rusty
I'm
was
so
a
sorry you got
trendsetter.
sick, sweetie.
I know Rusty, man, but Rusty was like a trendsetter, man. He was.
Oh, there you are, Brandon.
There he is.
Young man.
Those big eyes. Look at those big eyes.
Ah, they do cute.
What was that like being that young, working with Darin and Rusty and Paula? What was that like?
Wow, it was unbelievable. Also David Allen Greer, shout out to him and
Yes.
Paula was amazing. She was like a mom, like whenever I was, and I have allergies, really bad allergies, so forgive me. But
I love kids. You
Right.
were the veteran.
thank
This
you,
was my
Paula.
first movie. It
Was
wasn't
it?
yours. Yes, this was my first
Wow.
movie. I did this and Friday at the same time. Like I
Wow.
literally
Oh,
booked
wow. I
them.
didn't know
I
that.
didn't know what you did first. That's right. That's right.
So this was my first movie. This was not your first rodeo.
You're right.
I was looking at you like, what do I do? How do I? What am I? And you were just a little pro.
Little veteran.
Must
Little
be
vet.
like action. You be like, ooh. And I'd be like, oh my god, it's so fun. You were giving me tips.
That's so funny.
The thing about this industry is, I work with Kyla, another baby I work with all the time. Like I said,
I love
Stormy,
that.
I always get to work with the best babies, and I thank God for that opportunity. I always say he's my manager, the best manager you could ever have. But that's a beautiful thing about you child actors. You guys you're professionals and you're just little people,
Right.
and you're telling us grown-ups what it is. And, I've got the first day jitters and you're the old pro,
Right.
and I say that all the time, like you've been in the game longer than I have. And I'm, working
Yeah.
on 39,
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Tales from the Hood, what's amazing story about that is my manager at the time, before he became known as a world famous producer and TV exec, Lee Daniels was my manager. And and this was the first, I had just switched over representation, and the first audition he had for me was this film called Tales from the Hood. And the funny thing is, I actually didn't think I did that well in the audition. And
I was thinking
right,
that
I
too.
didn't think I did that well. But I got the call back, and I was fortunate enough to work on this film. And I'll be honest, at the time, I wasn't really old enough to really know what exactly Rusty was doing in terms of the stories he was telling. So as I got older and people were telling me how much they enjoyed this film, I got to appreciate what it meant and just the importance of it. And Rusty, man, like when I look back on this film, like the stuff you were saying, man, I think I heard earlier Paula was talking about the comparison to Jordan Peele and the stuff he's doing. Rusty, you were already doing it, man.
Yeah, I want to put the scene up of Crazy K because Rusty, I want you to talk about this because Brandon, to your point, this was pushing the envelope 25 years ago. So,
Right.
Rusty, talk about this. Talk about the scene.
Well, I wanted to bring this up now. Okay, so this scene, when we were talking about people that come up and say that this episode helped them see that they shouldn't gangbang and that black on black crime was bad. This particular scene within that episode was a big part of it, and kudos to Darin. Darin wrote most of the dialogue for this scene, I think. We have a really great actor here, but this is one of those things that I was talking about where we really put stuff in your face and don't back away from it. Go ahead, Darin. I know you want to say something about it.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Rick Dean came in.
Rick Dean being the white actor who's playing the crazy white supremacist in the cage.
Yeah. And, this is one of my favorite scenes, and I thought it was going to get messed up because he had worked on another picture all night. Then he came in the morning and literally fell asleep in the makeup chair while they got him made up. I go in there to say hi, and he's snoring while they're making him up. So I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. He got in that cage. Boy, he rocked it. One of my favorite scenes I've ever been involved with. He was just really good, and back and forth between the two of them was really powerful. And it's one of my favorite scenes.
And it's today, right? It wasn't just 25 years ago. This is today, right?
Yeah.
Brandon, what were you getting ready? You're getting ready to weigh in there.
I was just saying Lamont too. Rest in peace to him, who played Crazy K. He was an amazing actor, and I actually got to know him really well too.
Yeah.
Later on in his career, and I actually had talked to him like 2 weeks before he passed. So I just wanted to just give a shout out to him because he was amazing. Because if you look at his roles later on, like in Moesha, it's like completely the opposite.
Oh, totally opposite.
Right? So he was just amazing. Just the range he had as an actor was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was really good.
Hey, Darin and Rusty, I have a question. You had said that the last scene we watched was like the catalyst for a lot of people coming up to you and say they stopped gangbanging. Why do you think a movie was the reason they stopped gangbanging instead of like all the outreach programs or community programs that were coming into schools that wasn't getting there? Why a movie?
I would say because what film can do, probably more than any other art form, really. Books can do it somewhat if you can get somebody to read them. But what a film can do is take you emotionally to a place. So I think what we managed to do in that particular episode is intellectually connect something, the idea. Black on black crime is bad, and you're doing to yourself what you would say a white racist is doing to you that you don't like. So you're doing that to yourself. But putting it in a way that hits you from an emotional standpoint is what really takes you to a place where you can make a change within yourself. And so I think between that scene, those visual images of all the death of past lynchings and burnings and beatings, when you see that, you go, I'm doing that?
Exactly.
It's much different than someone standing up in front of you and saying, now you kids, you really, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Preached. In a movie, you're not being, though we're preaching in a way, but we're preaching in a way that hits you from an emotional level that hits you deep, deep, deep inside. And I think that's what did it.
Wow. One of the things the research team and I have been talking about in prepping for this, and shout out to Matt and to Everett and to Olivia, the three people that I've been working, is about horror deconstructing things like race and violence. And by that meaning the ability to sort of pull it apart and really get in there in the uncomfortable places of the topic and make people face, violence against women of color, or Black on Black violence, or white supremacy violence, and do so in a way that it looks at power and authority and all of those things together, and it makes you have to deal with them probably in a way that you turn off if it's just a news clip or if it's just a story. But horror not only deconstructs, it pulls you in. What do you think about that? I had to throw some academic stuff out there just to prove my street cred.
I would agree with you. I'll let Darren and anybody else answer too, but I would agree with you that horror allows you to dig into a topic, an issue, a feeling, an emotion, and it makes it visceral, and it makes it resonate kind of deep within you. Film has the ability to do that in other ways too, but because horror at its very center, and drama does this as well, but I think horror even more than drama is about attacking you from an emotional standpoint, not intellectual. I mean, you can throw the intellect in there, but because it's hitting you from an emotional standpoint, it does allow you to play around with all these things. And if you're clever, you can attach the intellectual to the emotional and create something out of it. I think even more than drama, in drama, generally you're either going to cry, you get the tears, or you get a little angry or something like that. But there's no emotion, I think, personally, that I think is stronger than fear, which is this fight or flight emotion that you get, and that's what horror and sci-fi to a certain degree can play around with.
And
They're
truth.
Really strong emotions.
You guys hit them with truth. I think Miss Audrey said that before as well. Those images are horrific. Right. It's kind of like how we saw Mr. Floyd get murdered. We can continually tell you that they are putting their necks on, they are stepping on our necks, but until you see it, and you see it horrifically, we sat there and watched the life go out of someone, and then we were ready to take a stance. And I think that is what you said earlier about those images. You guys, I love George, but he was living in an age where he had to sneak it in. He did, like you mentioned, Darren, he didn't say it that, he didn't call him a nigga. He just thought and kind of insinuated.
Acted like he thought he was.
You guys genuinely had him calling people niggas. You had the words coming out of my mouth, and those images, as horrific as they were, some people had never seen those images before, with white people standing around Black people being hung and murdered and castrated, and white people like, yeah, here's my Coca-Cola and a smile. I think that is what woke us up.
It is, and it also forces people to have a certain kind of conversation that maybe they wouldn't have had, otherwise. I mean, I remember conversations, with friends and family when Tales 1 came out that forced, a conversation about, not only violence against Black people, but violence perpetrated by Black people in a way that I'm just not sure, over fried chicken on Sunday, we'd have had that conversation any other way.
Yes, truth. You did. That's such a great point. You showed both sides, and that's honesty.
Brandon, what you been up to since Tales? So Brandon, what you been up to?
Wow. Well, so in the immediate, I did most people probably know me from a movie I did called Soul Food. That's the film that most people probably associate with my career, but it's amazing though, because it's what social media has allowed is for people to kind of reconnect with their childhood in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
I've been getting a lot of like interview requests and people like, man, you know, you were that kid, you were that dude. You know, it's funny. My friend called me the Jennifer Lewis of child actors. You know, Jennifer Lewis, who played
Right.
everybody's mom. They were like, you were everybody's son, basically.
Right.
You know, in the '90s, right? So, you know, I
starting
did.
all over again now. So the industry is opening up. So
Right.
you know, it's like we're all starting from ground one.
Right.
So
And
you know, this is all happening for a reason to balance.
Absolutely.
You know, so we're waiting on Rusty and Darren
to do something right.
Yeah.
And then, I'm writing and directing now. Actually, my wonderful partner, Genesis Scott, we were winners of the first annual John Singleton film competition this year.
Is that
Man, it was, I mean, out of like 300 people, our script was selected amongst, you know, I mean, anytime you have John Singleton's name on anything, it's an amazing honor. But unfortunately, COVID hit, so we weren't able to film our project. Part of the prize was we got $20,000 from the city of LA to film our project. So we're just waiting for COVID to go sit down somewhere. And
they're still going to give you the money.
Yes, they are. They said they're still gonna back that up, and so it's just I'm trying to be like Rusty
right here.
Yeah, look, trying to be
mentors,
like Rusty.
Don't do nothing without two brothers.
Yes, we got to keep in touch too, Rusty and Darren. I would love to just reconnect with you guys. And,
I'm just glad to see that you're such a well-adjusted young man. Because
thank you, man. Thank you.
In
My
the
mother.
early days, I did my best to traumatize you. First, you were in Menace to Society.
I was just
and watch.
Me and Darren go back. Yes, me and Darren go back. Yep.
So then you had to watch that and go through. You watched. You watched Darin beat up.
You definitely left an impression on his life because he's been talking about producing and directing.
And at that point, I think you were like 7 or 8.
I was.
A couple of years before. Then bringing you back in Tales from the Hood.
Tales from the Hood.
You get full blown horror trauma. You get to
so talk to me about the decision to make 2. So Darren and Rusty, talk to me about. Yeah, talk to me about 2. About Tales 2.
I've been trying to get it made ever since we did the first one.
Wow.
It took a long time. One of the main problem actually, was that the company, Savoy Entertainment, that originally financed and distributed the film, went out of business.
Okay.
And when they went out of business, all their assets and the rights to their films started getting pawned off and sold to all these different companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they bounced around, and they finally landed with Universal. And they landed at a point in time where it was around 2000, and we came very close at that time to getting another theatrical sequel done to it. But it's Hollywood. Things happen, and the deal ended up falling through. But that's the closest we had gotten. And because one studio owned the rights, we had to just keep coming back until they were interested in doing it. Because, studios don't let the rights to their properties go to another studio. Ever since Home Alone, nobody does that. They got people.
Is there like a certain debate, sequel, no sequel, that you went through about, okay, can we take it to the next level? Is one good enough? And, talk to me about that whole creative process, particularly with how powerful Tales from the Hood Part 1 was.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Go ahead. You can go ahead, Russ.
Well, before I get to that, I just want to say what you're watching right now is one of my favorite segments from Tales 2, which is the Emmett Till section here, where Emmett comes back and talks to a black person running for office, and he's talking about sacrifice. So this is just one of my favorite. This is actually one of my favorite tales of tales. But your question, we just wanted to make another film. We were never like, oh my God, maybe we should just leave it at one. No, we were excited to try and get something else done, and it was more a matter of saying, what are the issues that we're going to look at now? So this being an example, and apologies to, there's got to be some out there, Black Republicans that are listening in. I just had a real issue with understanding Black Republicans even before Trump became so popular. And the idea that the Republican Party had used the Southern strategy so much in so many different elections to get their candidates elected. They've used race continuously.
Yeah.
And now Trump is in office, and people are acting like this is a new thing. And there's a lot of Republicans I like now, or ex-Republicans like Steve Schmidt and different people that are actively trying to get Trump out of office. But they were part of it. And I think I've heard him even say that, he didn't realize how racism was used by his party so much. And that's shocking to me that he didn't, but it's quite an obvious thing. So this episode is really one where, we looked at different things that we felt were happening at the moment. And Trump was coming into office at that time. And I'm looking at these Black Republicans in the Senate,
Kim Scott,
who they are, who are backing this man up, and I'm going, what the hell are you doing? And so, so we had Emmett Till as a ghost come back and talk to one of them and say, I sacrificed my life in a certain way, because Emmett Till's death really did spark, in a strong way, a lot of people outside of just the Black community being concerned about Black civil rights in America. And so, but what if there was no Emmett Till? I think oftentimes as Black Americans today, we don't really appreciate the sacrifices that have been made on our behalf for us to live the lives we live. And we sit back and we don't want to go out. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed, if you can call it a joy, but it has kind of helped my soul, is seeing all the young people who have gone out and marched in the Black Lives Matters protests, and basically put their lives on the line. And all the white,
it's amazing,
who have gone out.
Right. That's what I've been impressed with. Yes, unity. Yes.
And Rusty, what was really
oh
yeah. And what's really powerful about that clip you showed is that you gave Emmett Till voice in a way that we haven't seen before. We're used to the images of him being lynched and burnt, but to give him voice and to use horror to go back in time to bring his voice forward into the present time, to me was just some next level thinking and imagery that you all put on the screen.
Want to jump into what you're saying and agree. There have so many stories that I am not limiting us to Tales from the Hood 3. I see for them an opportunity to do what's that, Twilight Zone. There are so many tales from the hood that it's innumerable that and unimaginable that you guys are just making this movies. Like, this is an anthology series that can last the ages. There are so many stories to tell. You guys are going to be able to give Brandon and myself an opportunity to direct some of these, the episode,
I'm for that.
And I think what about a dean that goes back in time? I think you need a series in there about a dean that goes back in time and, does some stuff, happens to be from Pittsburgh. Don't you think? I think that would be good.
I
Yeah,
I
No,
think
we
you
definitely
walk
don't
right
do
into
this.
that
Let's
woods,
do this.
right behind you. The mural of the woods, right behind you.
Rusty and Darin, does
20s,
I have a
and being
question?
a writer right up in there with whoever because I wanted to put it in the Harlem Renaissance.
Well, so
That's more the 40s,
I have a question.
running
So,
into.
Rusty,
So I pray that for
Yep.
us.
Yep.
does
Go ahead, Brandon. Go ahead.
Walter grows up, right?
Yes.
Right, Darin? Walter grows up.
I think he grows up in Tales 4. I think he grows up in 4, right? In Tales
I don't
4,
know.
right?
Walter
Because
might
of
grow
them,
up
Miss
to be a
Audrey, you
leader.
can write a couple of them.
What's that, Darin? You might
This into an anthology is not just for you guys. It's for the culture, baby.
for the
Right.
culture.
All
What
right.
was that, Darin? Walter
No, I
does what?
said after all you've been through, Walter's character might grow up to be a beater.
That's
Oh,
that's
that's
a
right.
story too.
There's a story right there.
That is
That's
a story.
too.
A
Isn't
cycle
that?
of
That is
abuse.
the cycle,
Right.
baby. Yes.
Cycle of abuse, right?
So
Wow.
Rusty, take us into Tales Part 3. So talk about the new film. Give us a setup, and then I think we got a clip from it here too.
All right.
Yeah, so we were
Woo!
fortunate enough to get Tony Todd.
Yeah, we got him back. Yeah. Oh no, that's not our baby. Did our baby come? Did Clarence come back?
No, Clarence didn't come back. But we've
Clarence,
got
I look back. Yes, Diva.
we've got Tony Todd, and we've got
That's
this beautiful young girl here whose name is Sage Arundel, who did a fantastic job. But Tales 3, we tried to look at other stories that some of them very closely connected to what we're doing today. One called The Bunker that I think kind of plays into what's happening now. But yeah, I mean,
what's this one?
To Brandon's point, well, this is the wraparound. This is the story that takes us through all the other tales. And we find Tony Todd here with this little girl, and he's trying to save her from something that is tracking them. And this thing that's tracking them, she's afraid of, and he's trying to take her away from it. And on their journey to try and reconnect with her mother, she tells stories. So that will calm her down and keep her from feeling so afraid on this journey. And so Tony and young Sage here are the ones that take us into various tales to be told.
Wow.
Wow, so it's kind of like an intergenerational setup or sort of visual narration of what's to come, right?
Not pretty.
Yeah, this is the top of the movie basically, and this is the stuff that happens that takes us into the first tale.
Pink hat.
And this was a very cold day. That's all. That's all I can tell you.
Seeing her innocence through the gray.
Yeah, this is the
lighting. Oh my gosh.
A young version of Brandon here, but a female version.
Yes.
I like that.
Another baby star.
Is that deliberate on your part, Rusty, to pull in very young actors and give them a voice in the films? Is that a real deliberate strategy?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things that there's this thing about children have an automatic innocence, and you automatically are concerned about their well-being if you're a decent you're automatically concerned about their well-being. So there's a good value to having young people in a film. I mean, I would go back. I mentioned the Babadook earlier. It's a perfect example of it. You're automatically concerned about this person. The Exorcist. You're automatically. It's a different movie if this person who is possessed is 35 years old. You don't care as much.
Always.
But if it's a young person,
yeah,
we're automatically invested. So it's just a smart choice.
I think we got another clip from 3 coming up. And so were there things that you wanted to keep from 1 that you pulled into Tales 3 at all? Or was this like it's a new day?
It's a new day. We were trying to find different things. I mean, as I said earlier, it's sad that so many of the things that we dealt with in Tales 1 are still here and, with us. And so we didn't specifically go to police issues. But this story here is one that Darin wrote. And it's dealing with landlords. Go ahead, Darin.
Oh,
Yeah, from a standpoint of theme, this one is about the housing crisis.
I hate landlords.
And which is really blowing up right now
Yes.
during COVID times, but even before, predatory
Aren't they
landlords
horrible? They're worse than Lomar people. Yes.
have been a massive problem for everyone.
Mm-hmm. To us.
Anyone who's trying to stay in LA right now, and I've got so many friends who are reluctantly moving out now because they just can't afford it. And because everything is being converted into expensive housing for 1%ers. And in this particular case, we have London Brown, and he's the landlord, and he's trying to get a family out of his apartment building. They're the last ones to go, but they won't leave because they have a son going through chemotherapy.
Wow.
So, like all evil landlords, he decides to get them out of there in an involuntary fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to see a buddy of his who's a little nuts and an arsonist, and they make a plan.
Mm-hmm.
And plan goes awry, and the family gets taken out. And then ghostly vengeance things happen for the rest of the episode. And it's pretty fun.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it is an episode that it really deals with kind of the housing crisis, landlord issues, slumlord issues.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Which again were made so much worse by COVID, right?
Right.
I mean, so the timing of this kind of thing just got absolutely just blown up because of all the things that we've seen in 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
I've experienced you can have the money and just be too dark to get the deal, to get into the apartment, black. You just you can have the money, but then they'll say, well, your credit isn't good enough. Okay, well, I'll pay a little extra. Then there's a little, then there's something else, so it's not.
How do you like the old?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things wrong with this place.
Right. They'll find.
Like it. There's a leak
it's
over
not just
here.
the money. Yeah, sometimes because we're getting beyond it being about the money, the black race. So now they find, credit's the new thing, or the old thing that's now the new thing. It's all sad.
One thing that we're trying to do as the series continues and hopefully goes on to television and definitely goes into more movies is just expand the range of issues that we deal with. Yeah, we deal with black and white issues, but not solely.
So this one is talk to me about this one.
Hood is no longer just black.
Exactly.
Well, this story is dealing with a guy who is in a bunker. He's a survivalist, a crazy. Well, not a survivalist. He's like one of those guys who's out there. He's ready for the race wars.
Oh, race wars! I love him. Who sides he fight for?
He's helter skelter all the way.
I love him.
He's locked down in a bunker. But this is a very cool episode, and the actor in this is just amazing. This is practically a one-man show on this.
Wow.
There's a few characters that show up, but he really carries this on his own. His name is Cooper Huckabee, and Cooper is just he's an amazing actor. If you don't watch any part of Tales 3, watch this for his performance.
All of them.
And then I would also
3,
say
4, 5, 6, 7.
I would also say get the Blu-ray at some point. Watch it on Sci-Fi, but get the Blu-ray because there's some stuff in this episode that you are not going to see on television.
So I do have a question. As I'm asking Rusty the professor, because I guess I know everyone knows that Rusty teaches. If not, now you know. I'm curious, Rusty, why aren't you turning it into a television anthology? Is it a more of a just know from a professor standpoint?
Why we aren't is because we're trying to.
We're trying to.
Okay.
We're in the process of trying to make that happen. It's tricky because there's, you got to deal with a lot of legal stuff. That's all I'm going to say about it. But we are definitely trying to make that happen.
Okay, so it's easier legally to make a movie.
It's been easier legally to make the films. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Makes sense.
But we still intend to make it.
I would love to see a show. That would be amazing, Rusty and Dan. That would be amazing.
I would love to do it. Now that you're directing, you should direct one of the episodes.
Y'all heard it here.
I heard it. I heard it. We're witness.
I brought it up.
Witness.
Audrey, you heard it here.
Got
Witnesses. This is recorded too, right? Right, man?
Yeah.
We got you, baby.
Cool.
You
All
know
right.
we got you. Now you got to make sure he got mama.
Got you. Holding you to that, Rusty. Holding
All
you
right.
to that. I would love that.
Y'all see that in the world. Y'all in the world. Everybody out there sees it.
Talk about full circle too, Rusty. That would be amazing, right? I mean, just full circle. And I tell you this honestly too, Rusty. You were one of the best. I've been blessed to work with really great directors. You're right there at the top of that list, man. It's obvious why you continue to work with kids because you work great with them. Because I've worked with some directors that are. You can almost tell the last thing they probably want to do is work with a kid, but your patience, Rusty, like obviously, and like to Darren's point, the kind of stuff that I'm doing in a film that is rated R, that could be traumatizing and horrific, you handled it, just extremely well. So I just wanted to just give you your flowers, bro.
I really appreciate that. I love working with kids. And to your point, Brandon, on Tales 3, and I can't say that much about it because I don't want to give too much away, but little Sadie Arendelle, she has some lines of dialogue. I wrote them for her, but having to direct her saying them was probably one of the hardest things.
Curse words are mature subjects.
She's great in it.
It's words about mature things.
It is all of it.
And she had a great mom, and I talked to her a lot on the set. But I really try to be protective of kids.
Yeah.
When I work with them, because I have seen, I come from the acting side.
Right.
And I've seen, sets are not children-friendly places.
They're not.
It's a lot of adults.
Yeah, there's a big scandal right now.
And a lot of these kids have
the
adults.
Me Too movement. There was insanity because people are always, you got young people. There's a lot of sexual energy on sets. There's a lot of improper things. And so I really try to be protective of children when they're on my sets anyway.
So we're going to open it up for the audience to submit some questions, but is there for all of y'all, is there a line where, that we go too far? So one of the commentaries we read is that, that there's this almost fetish with Black movies and Black violence, and that violence becomes the star of the film as opposed to other things. Is there a line that you're constantly thinking about as a director, as an actor, as a writer, that you want to make sure you don't cross that line in terms of how you're portraying, particularly films that involve Black issues and race and social justice issues?
I guess I'll jump first, but I direct for me and I write for me because that's all I have. And if someone comes up to me and has a problem with something I do, if I've written it for myself and I have an understanding of what I'm trying to do, I can say, you may not have gotten this. It may not work for you. This was my intention, but this is what I was trying to say. To second guess yourself about what someone wants and how they're going to take it in is kind of, it hurts you artistically. You've got to go, this is what's working for me. So I always write things for myself and I direct for myself. And I hope that enough people get it. But if I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to do this because I think this is going to hit this or that, and then somebody has a problem with that, what the hell do I say? I thought you would like it. No. I don't know if you like it or not. I don't care I care if you like it or not. But what I care first is that I have an honest understanding of what I'm trying to do. So if you come to me with an issue, I can say, okay, maybe I missed the mark for you, but this is where I was going with it. And I have
Brandon, Paula, jump in there from the actor's perspective. Do you sort of look for that from a director, and do you also think about that as an actor as well?
Not for me. The best directors are the ones like Rusty, who comes from the Spike School, where they hire capable actors that they trust and allow you to do your thing. And then they watch. And if you don't get it, then they may step in. Rusty or Darin would step in and have a conversation about, what was going on. And because they're teachers, and it might also be because Rusty went to theological school.
He's got a little thing in there. Hey, we just got another guest joining us. Hi, London.
Brian, what up, bro?
Hi.
Hey, what's
going on?
Hey, London,
man.
Maybe you can answer the question. How was working? How was Rusty's,
he was under Darren's tutelage.
Darren is hands-on.
Though I have directed London before, but not in this last.
Not in Tales.
Darren's good. He's a good noter giver.
And by the way, I can speak as far as from the child's perspective, right? And my mother, who was my manager, I know for her, like the very first curse word that I had to say was in minutes, Darren. That was I'm 7, 8 years old, doing all the things you're not supposed to be doing, right? Drinking a beer, cursing, sneaking out the house, and all of that. So I know
you said work is fun, huh? You were like, work is fun.
right. I was so nervous though. But I know for as a child actor and knowing my mom, just wanted to be able to trust that what the director, the writers, producers were doing was protecting our best interests. Even though they obviously had a film to make, you still wanted to have a sense that they very much cared about the psychological and emotional welfare of that child. So
London, why don't you chime in here? What was your experience like in working with Darin and Rusty? So give us a sense.
Well, first off, thanks for having me part of this. I appreciate it. Shout out to Darin and Rusty, you guys. Brandon, just on a hood perspective, bro, we got a lot of love for you going back to Mensa Society. Let me just get that out the way.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man, you held that down. So, but I think that what my experience with Darin was, I felt like it's always cool when the director trusts the actor with their choices, and like you said, maybe come in on the back end, or say, hey, well, why don't you try this option this way. So that was cool. I felt like it was, the communication was cool. And that's always nice, where if something didn't feel right, you say, okay, we'll try this way, and they're really open. So that's always cool for me to work with directors who are cool enough, who are not so locked in on you know, it's not some dictatorship on set, and that makes it comfortable, at least for me.
Well,
That
collaboration.
goes back
is
to
the joy
Paula
of the
saying,
whole-
like, letting you do your thing, right? I'm sorry, go ahead, Darren.
I was saying collaboration is, especially collaboration with the actors, is the biggest joy in doing it.
Finding it.
You know, people are always asking me, especially if they know that I've written something.
Thank you,
They'll
wrote
say,
and
What's
directed.
your favorite line? What's your favorite line? And for me, it's always like, oh, the time London ad-libbed this.
Thank you. Yes,
The time Paula came up with this thing.
That's
Other
funny.
actors.
Yes.
And because I've written the other stuff, those contributions are so fresh and exciting and elevate the material so much when you have good actors who are really thinking about what they're doing. They, you know, actors like these, they know more about the character than I do by the time they show up.
But it's more about you as the producer director, because you're the bosses. At the end of the day, we do what you tell us to do. So it's directors and producers, directors, writers like you that allow us to be, that give you the legendary films that you make. And I don't think people understand that it's a give and take. And we do get the dictators that London was talking about, that those movies don't make.
A collaboration.
You don't get the best product.
A true collaboration.
Yes.
We're going to get a question from the audience here, but I think it's powerful that you allow voice not only of the story but of the actors. So talk about the inspiration for these horror stories. Is it historical, imaginative? How do you respond?
I'm sorry, give me the question again.
It's right
So
there.
are the inspiration for your horror stories, is it historical or is it strictly imagination?
No, I mean, I think when you're looking at tales, you're looking at a combination of history and contemporary issues.
Yeah, it's all of the above.
It's all, and then imagination of how you're going to present it. You know, there's. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Somebody say something. I mean, there's times where you may begin with a concept. You're like, yeah, I'd like to. You know, there's a thing like this or something out there, but I would say more for tales. When Darin and I talk about different things that we want to do, it generally begins with what screwed up stuff is happening in the world.
Exactly.
What am I upset about? What am I angry about? How can I make that hopefully entertaining while I slide in the message that I want to add to it?
We've had no shortage of inspiration over the last 20 years. I'll tell you that.
Well, I actually think that horror gives you permission to go a little wild with the inspiration, right? So what if we were to rewrite this, this lynching so that the outcome was something different? What if we were to rewrite this? That horror kind of gives you a free pass to maybe even say, let's pull Emmett Till from history into inspiration and let history and inspiration have a conversation, right?
Nice.
Yeah. You can steal that. You ain't got to quote me. You can just take that.
It's already been stolen.
Don't worry, Audrey. We gonna get ours. I'm gonna make sure we get ours. You gonna write and direct?
We're right here. We're right here.
We ain't gonna let this boys club right here. Baby. It's me and you. Me and you.
All right, Colin has a question. Let's see what question. Give it to us. All right. So, how did the anthology format get decided upon, and were any of the tales treatments for features for feature-length movies? Interesting.
There are some tale stories that could potentially be feature-length movies, but I think we just started with the anthology thing from the beginning. Because maybe because there was a lot of things that we wanted to say. I can't even recall. But yeah, the Tales has always been an anthology. Though I would say there are episodes that sometimes we go, oh well, maybe this could be something longer, and it's trying to figure out how to tighten it up. But the great thing about an anthology is you can the great thing about a shorter story is you can be very surgical, and you're not dealing with crazy second acts where you're dragging storylines that may or may not have strong purpose to what you're trying to do. Yeah. So, an anthology, a short story, is a lot like telling a joke. You have a setup, you got a little bit of something there, and then you have a punchline that encapsulates what you're trying to say.
No, like 15 minutes long a piece, or how is it different timing?
There's different times, everywhere from.
So here, I'm gonna give you unlimited. I'm gonna give you unlimited budget. Which scene from Tales 1 would you make feature length? I'm giving you unlimited budget to get it done. Y'all tell me which scene from Tales 1 would you want to see in feature length?
That's cold.
That's a great question. That's a great question. Wow.
Yeah.
It would be, back on that for me, it would be a toss-up between the tale that Paula and Brandon were in and the Crazy K tale.
Yeah,
because I think both of those stories have the opportunity, have characters that you can add depth to. Yeah, which is what you need if you're doing a longer.
I could see us being Bates Motel. You growing up to be a cuckoo bar,
Darren was on
nurturing it. Like,
no, Darren was on something with that cycle.
You could do a nice back and forth history and then current to sort of really fill in. Here's what happens in people's histories that really drives forward to sort of current challenges for that. So yeah, you're right. You can make that happen with that. Yeah.
To be honest with that idea, what's interesting and sad is that really the only thing that's kind of changed are the costumes.
Right.
That's really about the only thing. I mean, we saw some rags for slavery period, or a suit if you want to go into the to the civil rights era. And then we're going to some khakis now, so it's kind of really
I'm an afro.
That's the only thing. And sidebar, I probably should have did the woman first, but just made a shout out to you, Miss Parker, as well.
Oh, I know you love London. I know I raised you.
What a gentleman. That's
yeah,
I
man.
like that.
I gotta acknowledge, because I never had a chance. Growing up, you see these folks, and you be like, so it's just nice to say connect and just give them their flowers, like, yo.
Absolutely.
But I feel like you thought we knew each other. That's how I did take it. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, I like to do it. I like to give it up. Like, I don't have no problem giving it up. I say, yo.
And I'm learning to say thank you. I humbly say thank you.
But it's funny though, to Rusty's point about that, like, I often get asked as if I have the answer, what happened to Walter? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't hear that. I get asked that a lot, Rusty and Darin. Like, they always ask me, so what happened to your mom and Walter? Did your mom and the teacher hook up? And I'm like, they're asking me questions that I possibly could not know, But people are often curious what happened to Walter. But I agree with you that not just because I was in it, but to see like child abuse and spousal abuse like on a platform like that, like it was just amazing, like to see that dealt with.
It's too, baby. Yes, we don't talk about the child abuse as much.
Right.
We don't, particularly within Black families, right? We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about abuse. It's a whole bunch of stuff we don't talk about, right?
Exactly.
Oh, we got a question about Clarence Williams' question next. What was it like working with Clarence Williams?
Amazing. I mean, Clarence was, and everyone in the Tales cast was awesome, but Clarence was just special.
He different. Different.
When you see what he brought to that character, there's things that he did that I didn't tell him to do, I didn't ask him to do. He found it kind of within himself. And, we would talk about the costume and this, that, and the other. And he was also probably, of all the actors I've ever worked with, one of the most serious people about his craft and how he approached the process that I've ever met in my life.
No doubt.
I'm grateful that he was. I'm grateful that he was open, and I'm glad that I wasn't intimidated by it, because he doesn't take things lightly. So when you're talking to him about something, he's like, well, Mr. Cundieff, how do you see this? I see. And he's right there. There's no, he's very old school in how he approaches his work. There's no joking around, though the character is crazy.
And hilarious.
And hilarious.
What's keeping
But his intensity, his level of intensity as an actor has to be where I can't even imagine being on set and you're not paying attention to anything else. You're just so drawn in to that intensity.
He's a human special effect. Rusty.
Yeah.
I already told that story, Darren.
Oh, shoot.
Why is he coming back? Can you talk about that? What's keeping him from doing? Does he just not look back? Because I know he played my father in Sprung, so I know he loves you guys.
Well, we did something else with him, and we tried to get him back. He's just gotten older, and he's I just think he's at an age where he's like, my body of work is what it is.
Okay.
I have a Clarence story, by the way.
I want one.
Let's hear it.
Brandon.
Story time.
So, I hope, forgive me, Clarence, if you do watch this. So I worked with him again on another film years later called Blue Hill Avenue. And so the word that I was immediately thinking, Rusty, when they were like, how was it work with him, is intimidating and intense, right? The two eyes. So and when you talk about the seriousness of your craft, we were doing a scene and someone's cell phone goes off in the middle of a take.
No.
When I say he lit into the entire crew, and it wasn't even like everyone, it was just like one person forgot to turn off their, and it was just like, it was just the most intense moment. And I was so frightened. I'm 16, by the way, at the time. So I was so afraid. But then when all was said and done, it's, hey, nice working with you. It's very just professional, almost like it didn't happen. Almost like that was that moment. He compartmentalized it for that moment, and that was it. But when I say he lit into the entire crew, it was like I think everybody ended up leaving their phones in the trailer. After that, nobody wanted to have a phone at home. Right? It was so definitely intense.
He's not playing. He's not playing.
Yeah, in the middle of the take. Yes, in the middle of the take, he was just
I will also say this about Clarence. I would talk to him after the movie. We would talk every now and then, and he would call me out of the blue, and he would call and say, Mr. Cundieff, and I'd say, hey, what's up, Clarence? I feel bad. I would just call him Clarence. I'd say, hey, what's up? He would be watching C-SPAN, and he's a big political junkie.
Wow.
But he would only watch C-SPAN because they weren't talking heads. He's like, I like to get it. I like to get exactly what the people are saying on the floor. I don't want to hear somebody else's interpretation of it. I'm going to listen to it. So he would watch C-SPAN all day long. And then I remember I would run into him at clubs and restaurants. And his attitude, even in the club,
was intense.
He would be in the club in these dark shades.
What club,
He would just be sitting there like this. And you go up and you say, Hey,
I love
Clarence,
him.
how you doing?
Now.
I'm good, Mr. Cundieff. How are you?
Did you order your drinks? You have a cigar?
Hands women the third in the club.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't a dancer. He didn't talk to anybody. He would just be chilling. Now I have talked to older actors that said that they would hang out with him. It was a different vibe, but
yeah,
he's an amazing, interesting individual.
He's
Yeah,
just super intense, dude.
I love it.
I love that.
A legend for sure.
Because I can tell.
Hey, we got a question here for London. So let's. Looks like a question for London popped up on my. Let's see it.
Hey, London, I have a question.
Yeah.
How did you approach coming into Tales 3? Meaning, Tales from the Hood had been, a seminal film. How did you feel coming into this third installment? Did you go back and watch it? Like, what did you want to bring to it, and how did you prepare?
My main thing was, at least in the Hood, that first one it's just one of those. That is one of those classics. That's Tales from the Hood. That first one is up there in that conversation with the Fridays, with the Minister Societies, because we hadn't, at least I don't really recall seeing, the thing that makes the first Tales from the Hood dope is because it wasn't a black version of white scary movies. It was a real black reality to it. So it was different because the whole thing too is that, because some people say, man, we need to see more black people in horror films, but I feel like if writers try to create black versions of white horror films, there's going to be a disconnect because we don't approach fear in the same way. I don't even get this deep, but black people live on a regular basis on a defense. We're always on the alert.
Wow.
So there's no way we would even, and then we live on the alert and very guarded. And then two, most black people, not all, but most black people have some sort of connection to something spiritual anyway. So that kind of between the ideas would be totally interesting.
I mean, we came here on a slave ship. Let's start there. We's a strong folk. We made that journey. Those of us that made the journey.
It's a whole other. It's a substratum of things that go into it. But my point is that my whole thing with even saying yes to the project, I just wanted to do something different from the series that I had just finished, and I just wanted to.
What was that? What series?
Ballers.
Oh,
yeah, London Ballers.
So I was like, man, let me just, especially this early on, it's important to create that, get the palette open and explore that stuff now, so I don't get kind of grouped into anything. But the one thing I will say that was interesting for me about this project was just the reactionary stuff. You got a crew of whatever it is, and you just hear Darren run, jump, okay, scream. And sometimes the amount of, like, it may be maybe under 10 feet, and I would have had to be run like 3 floors, but the shot is taking place in 10 feet, so I got to create 3 stories of energy.
Of exhaustion.
Half of exhaustion in 10 feet, and then it's like cut, and then everybody's back and they're having coffee and steam, and I'm breathing hard, and it's a retake. So just some of those technical things of needing to escape into this place is always interesting for me, or was interesting for me. So, I mean, I just tried to just be present. I don't know. It's best I could do that. I didn't.
You did a great job, man.
I can't say that I went back to anything, and I'm not that. At least in this project, I wasn't like number 1 on the call sheet, so I can't go back and be watching the tapes. So I ain't at that place yet, so I gotta just.
I think number 1 get to do all that.
I'll tell you something though, man.
Not all the time.
This was
I know,
a rare picture for me, in that when I talked to the casting director, she said, "Well, who do you think is right for this part?" I said, "Well, I've been watching this show Ballers, and there's a guy on there, London Brown. Let's try to get him." And he accepted it.
Oh, thank you,
and the
man.
same thing with Lynn Whitfield. I was like, Lynn Whitfield would be perfect for this. So they went to her, and they accepted it. That never happens. Or especially when you don't have a lot of, a huge budget.
They
This
showing
never
off
happens.
DVDs.
It's like, okay, here's a person, you get to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th person on your list, and maybe, maybe you get
I'm
it.
sorry, am I upstaging what you're saying? I'm just trying to give a little visual.
That's cool.
That's a lot.
Okay.
That's all right.
On
That's
Tales
all
from the
right.
Hood 3, I got who I wanted, so.
That's
That,
awesome.
that means you're doing the right thing when you
Thank
get
you.
Both did a great
all
job.
into place like that. That's God.
Thank
It
you.
is. But you know what? I hate to do this, but we are at 9 o'clock, and so I'm gonna let Rusty
Are you kidding me?
have the. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna let Rusty have the last word. But let me thank our host from the George A. Romero Foundation. You guys rocked. Let me also thank the University of Pittsburgh Honors Class College for sponsoring this. Rusty, you got a lot of accolades on your resume. I'm gonna add another one. You are a treasure, man. You are absolutely a treasure. And it was just, this has been such a thrill.
Thank you, Miss
I'm gonna-
Audrey. I'd like
I'm gonna
to
let
thank
you have
you.
Absolutely.
You're a phenomenal hostess, Miss Audrey. And you mentioned
Yeah.
that the two of you grew up in Pittsburgh during the same time. Did you guys know each other? Was he a popular guy?
I grew up in Chicago, and actually where I live
Okay.
now is a couple of doors down from where Rusty grew up. We were in the same neighborhood. I joined the
I
same.
want to tell.
Actually, Rusty's sister was in my class, when I was teaching in the MBA program. So she was one of my students, and I've just been a longtime fan. And so this is like on the top 2 coolest things I've gotten to do, other than
Wow.
seeing Stevie Wonder live in concert. You're number 2, man. I just want you to know.
And can I ask one more question, Matt? Okay, Matt, are we worthy of the Horror Fest the horror comms yet?
Yeah. You guys would draw at a convention. I trust me. You guys, if you showed up at a convention, you guys would have lines. So hopefully you guys, when we can get out of this social distancing environment and can handshake and hug and take selfies,
Would love that.
I'd love to see you guys at a show. I would definitely be there for you guys.
It'll be all. Thank you guys. Thank you,
Yeah, that was
Ed and
great.
Eric, for having me on, and Audrey. Thank you guys for having me on, and Rusty for
Absolutely.
inviting me on, and Darin, for, both of you for giving me like one of my first opportunities, man. And Tales is just really one of the greatest working experiences of my career, and I'm so appreciative of it. And like London said, it's a classic. It
Thank you,
really is.
Hi.
So thank you. guys.
Absolutely.
All right, Rusty, you get the last word, man.
Get the last one. All right, so I'm going to say thank you to Eric and Matt and you, Audrey, for putting all this together. It's really, really great to get a little bit of attention from the hometown. And congratulations on Pitt's new program that is really focusing on horror and how it deals with social issues. I think that's fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
To Darin, who I've collaborated with, thank you. We talk all the time, but he knows how much I appreciate it. Or maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I did.
He wrote me a really nice letter the other day.
And Paula, London, and my man Brandon, thank you guys for showing up. I think David tried to get in and couldn't. David, if you're out there, thanks, man. But you guys, it's so much about what actors bring to it. So I want to thank you for your participation in the films and what you brought to it. London, you did great in this last one. You'll see it.
Watching now.
Paula, you were rock, and Brandon, just one of the greatest little dudes of all time, who's now big,
Wow.
giant.
Thank you, Rusty.
Yeah, man. I mean, you guys have done great. And then the other thing that I would say is to whomever's out there watching, check out Tales 3, where we appreciate your following the series and your enthusiasm for what comes up next. It's what keeps us excited to want to do more. There's tons out there, so I thank you for that. And go to Sci-Fi. Enjoy seeing Tales from the Hood 3 on Sci-Fi. It should be starting right about now. And then get the Blu-ray. Trust me, my deal isn't good enough for me to make much money off the Blu-rays, but you should get the Blu-ray.
Get the Blu-ray.
Universal doesn't give me anything much off the Blu-rays, but get the Blu-ray. You'll see some stuff on there that you don't see on Sci-Fi. You'll hear all the dirty words that you can't hear, and you'll see some sexual activity that you can't see. All right, here we go. Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, grab the Blu-ray. Grab the Blu-ray.
What's that girl who promised sexual activity?
No, grab the Blu-ray. Paula, I just got to say, I loved you in Phone Booth. I've been wanting to say that all night.
Great.
Always made me chuckle every time I watch that movie. Love it. Brandon, thanks for jumping in last minute. Seriously, absolutely. London, thank you so much for joining us. Darren, Rusty, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honor. Audrey, you were fantastic. It was just an absolute joy.
He's great.
Yes, let's give it up for Audrey. She carried the show.
Let me say one thing to Audrey. Audrey, we got to get you some more experiences, because if I'm second after Stevie Wonder, right. You're just not living right.
You know, Rusty, I'll roll with you. I'll roll with you, Rusty. I really will.
Okay. All right.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody, and we want to remind everybody to get over to
supporting Black films, because now they're just films.
And get over to Sci-Fi and check out Tales 3 right now.
Yep, go check it out.
Keep in touch, man.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Yes, Brandon, I got that hookup for you, boo. I got the hookup for you.
All right. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Girl.
Night.